regardless of what you're doing in life, if you focus on you yourself, that is the best thing you can possibly invest your money into.
Welcome back to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and today I am with Austin Hauser, who is the founder of Basecoat Marketing. Austin, thanks so much for coming on today.
Chris, thanks for having me, man. It's always a great time to chat with you.
I wanted to just first start out with, you have to be the most professional setup, like mic, camera, the backlighting, you got some LEDs, you got a TV. Obviously, you come from the marketing and just the content world. So I wanted to say, it looks fantastic.
Thanks, man.
What do you use for your setup?
Yeah, so I got a Sony A6000 camera, but honestly, it's the lens on these cameras that really make the difference. I think, honestly, you can spend any amount of money on a DSLR camera, but the lens should actually cost more than the camera in some regard, but also the microphone. So I got a mic just out of screenshot here, and I think if you're going to invest in anything, it should be in the audio, given that not everybody actually watches you. Most of the people are going to be listening to you in the background, even if it's on YouTube or something like that.
Totally. No, I couldn't agree more. I had this, I think it was probably 5 years ago. I saw a video of Casey Neistat talking about how he thinks of production quality versus like effort or time that it takes to achieve that quality. And he says it's like a steep curve. It's like, it applies to many things, but if time and effort is on the bottom and you're on your x-axis and y is your quality, there's a very steep climb and then it starts to taper. So he was like, I always try and find the balance of like the best that you could do, which could take you, 10 hours.
Yeah.
Or I could spend 5 minutes, get 70-80% of the way there. It looks great. And then, so anyways, I come from a video production background, so I can tell when someone's using a DSLR, but in my current life, I'm just like, oh, I don't have the time to manage an additional camera and the battery dies or the power cord's unplugged or whatever. So anyways, I like what you got going. So good work. Well, today we are going to be talking about, I guess I was going to throw this out there. I don't know. You probably do a lot of content on marketing and lead gen, which we can go deeper into. I also love the conversation around benefits and business coaching. Do you have what's hot on your mind right now, or what are you thinking about these days?
Yeah. So actually, ironically, I was just on a podcast the other day talking about business coaching and just how valuable that is. And I'm very passionate about learning. I consider myself a very curious person. That's why we have one of our core values as be curious. I think it's important to ask questions, right? You never want to be the smartest guy in the room. In fact, in my opinion, if you are the smartest guy in the room, you might be in the wrong room. I think you should really aim to be the dumbest guy in the room in any possible scenario, given the fact that you're generally going to learn from those types of people. And I think business coaching is just a great way to accelerate your growth, your mindset, and get you from point A to point B much faster.
Have you heard of the idea of, this is from, I'll give the guy credit, Stephen Pataski, a very successful land and business or like building developer and real estate investor. But he said you should always have a peer group, which is people that are, going on the same journey as you. You should have a mentor, which is someone that is, this was actually, well, I'll come back to his definition of a mentor. And then the third one that he says is a coach. And you get three different things from those three people. And then if you break down each of them, I thought I never had I've experienced those at different times. And currently I do have, I would say, all three of those, but I hadn't ever intentionally sought it out. And what he described is like the peer group is like if you're a marketing business, like a digital marketing owner, can you get in a room with a bunch of other digital marketing owners from around the country that are talking about their challenges and what's coming and, the next thing and all that stuff? And there's value in that. But then there's also mentors, which are, he actually said it's dangerous to have a mentor that's too far, like say 10 years or 15 years ahead of where you're at, because it's not beneficial for them. They don't enjoy it. They're trying to they're telling you stuff and you're just like caught on first base. You just don't even understand what's going on. But if you can find a mentor that's like 5 to 7 years ahead of you, it's much more valuable and enjoyable for both parties. And the mentor is like, you buy them lunch once a quarter or something, it could be informal. But then the coach is the other big thing, which is you're paying someone to basically hold you accountable and reflect back how you are showing up compared to what it is that you're stating you want. And so, anyways, those are the three things. I don't know if you've ever had it laid out like that or if you have anything to build on top of that.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And I would go as far to say that at each level, you can have multiple various perspectives as well. So, for instance, I'm part of a marketing mastermind group. I'm actually a coach in that group myself. I started out as a student, that's my peer group. I actually have a few different mentors and a few different coaches as well. So, just as an example, life coaching. I think running a business is a spiritual game, whether you're religious or not. It is a game of your mind, your body, and your soul, right? And it's going to push you and it's going to challenge you. There's always going to be instances where you wake up, you're like, yeah, you know what? I'd be fine if somebody wants to buy this business today. Like you're going to have that as an entrepreneur. And then I like to call it the entrepreneur's curse, which is we always have the drive and the motivation to never be content with where we're at today. And that's good because it always makes sure, always make sure that we push ourselves and our team to want more and to get more. But at the end of the day, like you need to have that moment of gratitude and appreciation for where you're at. And I think a lot of guys fall short of that in the business world. And having people to remind you of how far you've come is really important. And then also helping you avoid those roadblocks. And whenever I mention that you have different levels, or different perspectives, what that looks like for me and our team is my operations director has a coach. Our CX director has a coach. I have a coach. So you need different types of coaching for different positions. Finance, for instance, is another good one. And I think just anything that you can do to plug somebody into your life who's better at that thing than you are just saves you so much headache.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I actually am curious. Tell me more about this coaching for your people. How is it the same coach that is coaching each of them, or do they get to pick? This is actually something that I've had conversations. Because I have a coach and my wife has a coach, and then we're part of a SaaS, like a software mastermind group that also has coaches.
Is that by chance Dan Martell?
Yeah, SaaS Academy.
Love that guy. Yeah.
It's fantastic. If you have a software company, it is like it's incredible. And just like the in-person event was so well run. The coaches that we have is Coach Tracy, who just is she's been in multiple software businesses, and it's just like invaluable to have somebody that is like giving you the frameworks and the models and the ways to think about like problems that we've been like stuck on for like 4 years. It's like 30 minutes. We're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. This is crazy. And it's like, dang it, why didn't we do this so long ago? But I feel like that happens it's over and over. But as far as the coaching for your team, yeah, how did you guys come up with the way to structure that and make it like, equitable or fair to everybody, the budget to a lot, all that stuff?
So I actually stumbled across a guy. His name's Chris Martinez. He always says I give him too much credit for what he does for me and my team, but I very much disagree with that statement. He has. I was first introduced to him as like an operations coach on the marketing side. He has run a marketing agency himself. He's got a full team. And he identified that it would actually provide more value to his clients if he took each member on his team, each director, and plugged them in with a director on one of his clients. So, we're his student essentially. And what that allows us to do is each department of his marketing company has already walked that path before. They understand how it's run, and then they can just plug into each department and basically say, all right, so from operations, media, finance, whatever that is, here's the path, here's the roadblocks you're going to run into. So for instance, from the client experience side, they were able to plug away an entire customer journey for us, which is something that could take a year or so to actually really build out. We were able to do that in the course of a couple of sessions. So I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer here, but I think if you can find a company, I think it needs to be a company that's well run, that's doing the same thing that you're doing. See if they have other people on their team that you can plug into. And this goes for any industry, right? Painting, whatever. If you find somebody else who's running their company well, they have leaders on their team. And those leaders are going to have the insights that even the owner of the company probably doesn't have, right?
And so you just go, you have a relationship with this Chris Martinez. He's the owner and he's coaching you.
Yes.
And then you were like, hey, can your other people just coach my people?
Yeah, so fortunately, it was kind of built into his framework that way, so it worked out well. But yes, that's in a sense, that's exactly how I would recommend going about approaching that. Given that, again, if the operations director is going to have the nuances of how the internal communications of a company works, because I think internal communications is something a lot of people struggle with. It's just there's a ton of ways to do it. There isn't a right or wrong way, but finding the most efficient way is difficult, and they're going to understand what that process looks like way better than the business owner does. So like to your point, having a mentor that's 10 years in front of you, they're going to be looking at you as why do you care about these small problems when you should be focusing on the bigger picture, which I think is helpful. But in the moment, you really need answers to some of those small problems to even get to that next level. And I think that's where having the dedicated coaches for each department really helps elevate you to that point much faster.
What about life coaching or the other, like, so in just my assumption is the arrangement that you have, it's fantastic tactical advice. It's like, hey, here's the customer journey. Got it? Yep. Okay. Let me know if you have questions. But what about the other stuff, which I know you invest in personally? What about like just realizing that you've got limiting beliefs and childhood trauma that's stopping you from being the best version of yourself? Do you do that stuff with the team, with your team as well?
So, yeah, I do it myself personally, and the way that I impart that on my team is I actually coach them. I train them. I impart some of my wisdom on them, and so just kind of to paint the picture there, um, my journey on the life coaching side, which just to back up even a moment further, I would really go as far to say that in the world of business, 90% of your success comes from your mindset, believing that you can. You mentioned limiting beliefs. That is something that I think a lot of people struggle with, having that imposter syndrome, right?
Or subconscious beliefs that they don't even know they have?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I think 90% of your success comes from your mindset. The other 10% is skill. You can learn skill pretty quick. That's what coaches are for. But believing you can and overcoming the fears of failure, right? Everybody fears failing, which I've been there before. I get what that feels like. But now looking back on that as somebody who's failed a bunch, it's like, all right, well, how else are you going to learn, right? I like to use the analogy of a video game. You don't go into a video game and expect to get to level 10
Without dying.
the first try. You're going to die 100 times along the way, right? It's the only way you can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so I actually invest in Tony Robbins. Everybody's probably heard the name before, but he has a great program, and it has nothing to do with motivation. It is all to do with identifying what your limiting beliefs are and just demolishing those. He has some very intense in-person programs, which I highly recommend anybody, no matter where you are in life, go attend one of his events. He's got it's called Unleash the Power Within event. It's once a year. It's usually held in like somewhere on the East Coast. Here in the States. I think he also has them overseas throughout the year as well. It's like a 4-day event, and you walk on fire, right? Like you literally walk on fire. It's wild. The crazier event though is what's called Date with Destiny. They actually made a Netflix documentary about this.
I'm Not Your Guru.
Yes, correct.
Yes, I've seen that one.
So I attended that event back in December, and it is like going to sniper school, where UPW is like boot camp. You get very little sleep. You're in a room that's full of like 15,000 people, and it's freezing cold. It's like they purposely starve you of food. You don't get a ton of sleep, so like they're breaking you down. Date with Destiny is like you are there from 8 a.m. until 3 a.m. And then you go back to the hotel, you sleep for a couple hours, you come back, you do the same thing the next day. You're jumping around, you're burning calories. It is intense, and you barely eat while you're there. You don't know what time it is, and it's a very intense event. But when you're talking about breaking down your limiting beliefs and childhood memories of being bullied or whatever that looks like, right? Those types of events are really what does it for you, because it solidifies what those challenges are and just how much they are the story you're telling yourself in your own mind. I think a lot of us have this perspective that everybody is thinking about you, when that is just the most selfish belief you could possibly imagine. Everybody's thinking about themselves. They don't care about you, right? So once you overcome that, the rest of life becomes so much easier.
I love that. So how many events, how many Tony Robbins events have you been to?
So I'm what's called a platinum partner, and just basically what that means is I can attend all of the events throughout the year. I've attended several virtual, several in person. I was just in Whistler at a finance event where we were, talking to the best of the world and in the finance space. So he has different types of events for different reasons. But in my opinion, if you are ever interested in Tony Robbins, he's got an app called Breakthrough, and he's got a lot of the general frameworks of these events on that app. But the two events each year, if you guys can go online, look them up: UPW, Unleash the Power Within, and Date with Destiny. Those two events, anybody can benefit from them. I highly recommend them.
Interesting. I was going to say I had another coach say one time that the content in any coaching or any event like that, like if you were to read the transcript of a Tony Robbins event, um, you'd be like, it's like there's nothing groundbreaking there. And that's the point when people are like, "Oh, I'll just watch the video or I'll just read the book or whatever." The difference between what this coach would say is yes, it's the like the physical presence of the person, but what is even more powerful is that you carved time out of your own life. You like physically moved or journeyed to a different location, and you are like cutting out noise and distraction and the everyday routine of your regular life, and that itself is creating a container for, transformational stuff to happen because of that. Like that's the prerequisite of going to an event, is that all happens just by default, and then you layer on the other stuff in the event. And again, the knowledge is probably stuff that you've heard. I mean, you could tell me, no, there was some new stuff I hadn't heard of before, but 98% of the stuff that is explained, you're like, oh yeah, I've heard someone say that to me, but for some reason it didn't stick. And this guy would say it's because you never like put yourself in a place to actually be able to receive that information or have your body like process or do something with it. Do you agree with that? Or how would you, having actually done several of these events?
Yeah, I really think, I mean, if you just look at how much time you invest into an event like that, it's in the course of 6 days, you are investing about 90 to 100 hours of your time into one thing, and that is rewiring your subconscious. That's literally what you're doing. And if you think that you can rewire your subconscious in the course of a week any other way, unless you fully immerse yourself in that program, it's not going to happen, right? So I really think it's about just breaking your body down, your mind down, looking at actually like where you're at. There was a lot of meditation involved, and a lot of just deep thought. And the crazy part is you'll be in that room for 20 hours and it feels like 5. Just the time flies so fast. But regardless of what you're doing in life, I think if you focus on you yourself, that is the best thing you can possibly invest your money into. And you notice I say investment because coaching is a cost, but in my mind, it's just an investment. There's nothing better you can possibly invest your time and money into than yourself.
Mm. So as far as uh like encouraging your people, I've one of this is a conversation that I've had around this with employees of ours, is I have always, well, I'd say it was probably 4 years ago was the first time that I invested in a coach outside of like a sport coach that was coaching me in a team that I was on, right? First time that I'd done it was 4 years ago. I guess that's not true. I hired like a sales consultant like 8 years ago, but it was very tactical. And then I'd been in like some business groups, but just literally paying for someone that I would say is more of a life coach. That was the first time I'd done that, was 4 years ago. And I had to, interestingly, my former employer paid for part of that investment because it was, I don't remember what the amount was, but they said, we'll pay half of it for the 6 month like commitment that they were asking for. And they invested, like my business, my company that I was an employee of, invested in me to do this. And then after the 6 months, the owners were like, okay, we can't keep doing this. So if you want to continue, you're on your own. And I did continue. And I would say, looking back through this coaching group, these coaching groups that I was a part of and meeting other people, it was that encouraged or gave me the confidence through other people just reflecting back with no attachment to what I'm doing, to have the courage to be like, you know what, I'm going to go back out, because I was an entrepreneur, then I was an employee, and then I jumped back in the entrepreneur world 2 years ago. But the reason I'm bringing this up is I've had the conversation of like, I want to invest in people in my business, in their own coaching and life coaching, and just figuring out what their purpose is, even at the risk of it being the beginning of the end of our working relationship, if that makes sense. Because it's like, yes, there's a fear of like, oh no, what if this rock star leaves our team and does something else? But it's like kind of silly for me when you break it down. It's like, so what are you saying, Chris? You want to like have like hold on to people that are meant for something else, like, and then also not believe or trust that someone else is going to come and fill that role that might be a better fit or whatever. But I feel like a lot of people, a lot of business owners, I think, are fearful. It's the classic, like, what if I invest in them and they leave? And it's like, what if you don't invest in them and they stay? Like, and then what?
Totally. I mean, it's a scarcity mindset is what that is. And,
Yeah.
I think as entrepreneurs, we all need to recognize the fact that we are resourceful. And so like there's a few different human needs as we all kind of follow the same path, right? And one of those that I think most of us are most attracted to is the fear of uncertainty. Some people like being uncertain. They love living the life full of excitement, like what's around the next corner, right? Like those are like the adrenaline junkie kind of people, which I think you could say that I'm part of. But uncertainty is things like your rock star on your team leaves. Now what? Like, am I going to be able to find somebody? Is everything going to come collapsing down? Like, you start telling yourself this story that in reality, everything's going to be fine because you will find a way. And I think you just need to be confident enough in what you're doing to recognize that and be able to keep pushing forward, because that's all business is it's identifying the half-life of a problem and making it as short as possible, so that way you can just find that solution. I think a lot of us dwell on fear and problems that aren't actually problems. Another perspective of this is, if you standing here today, if you ask yourself what are your problems in life, like we can probably come up with a bunch of shit, right? Like a mortgage debt, like whatever it looks like for you. But in reality, you don't have any problems today. Like, you are alive, you are standing above the ground, the sun is shining outside, like whatever that looks like, your problems aren't that big. And I think a lot of people over, they put the problems too big in their mind, where I think if you make them smaller, the solutions become a lot easier to find.
You heard the favorite, or like a great one that I always think about in these contexts is, a healthy man has many wishes, but an unhealthy man has only one:
Just one. That's right.
to be healthy again.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's like, yeah, it's like you're alive. It doesn't matter. You could be losing all of your material possessions, go to jail. I don't know, whatever the stuff is. Like, okay, like now what, So you can still move, but what's the next decision that is in front of you to make? So this is the that part of like investing in employees. I know I want to do that, but here's the thing. I know that the first coaching group that was like, first of all, the business did not fully pay for it. I had to pay for some, so that was helpful. But the next session, when I put in 100% of the money, it was different than when it was getting paid for. Or I'd been in groups that were free, or someone else like, hey, I want you to come to this thing, I have a free ticket. It's totally different than when it's like your money's on the line and you are like, I need to get a return on this. Like, I'm showing up, I'm gonna do my homework, all that stuff. So how, because obviously you investing in Tony Robbins, you have a personal, like, monetary commitment to this thing. And if you just paid for that for a team member of yours, I believe, and I'm curious if you would agree, that there's no way that they're going to get the same transformation, because it wasn't, I don't know, like, that matters. If that, I don't know how else to describe it. So I guess, what's your solution to encourage and assist and invest in people, but also it's like the coaching of like, I'm going to do this much, and I hope and pray that you see the value and you take your own resources and dump it into it for yourself as well. But there's like, I feel like there's a balance of like, you can't just expect, Like if your people on your team only have the mindset of I like coaching and I will do coaching as long as it's provided and it's valuable, that's a different perspective than someone that is like, I value coaching so much, I'm willing to take money from other places of my life and invest it into that. And now, a quick word from our sponsor, which is Boolean Review. Boolean is a review software that my wife and I own, and we sell this software to home service businesses. So I know there are many different people that listen to this podcast, but if you know someone, an electrician, an HVAC business, a painting company, maybe a coffee stand, someone that is providing service to customers and get found online by customers, we would love to talk to them. This is a review software that is the highest converting review software in the home service space in particular. And if you're wondering what that means, if you have 100 clients in your business, the typical business gets between 1 to 2% of those customers. So for every 100, they would get one person or two people to leave them a review on Google. Other review softwares get between 3 and 5%, and the Boolean review software gets 20% of your customers to leave you Google reviews. And these are fantastic Google reviews with lots of words, keywords that are going to help with SEO, pictures, stories, the names of your employees. So if you want to learn more, check out booleanreview.com. And now back to the episode.
No, that's a great distinction. And I'll first just mention the fact that I probably spend close to a six-figure salary on coaching, right? And it's, again, because I remember the first time I made an investment into coaching, it's like $1,200 a month, right? And I remember I clicked pay and just I started sweating. I'm like, is this the right investment? Like, am I going to see a return on this? And I literally probably 110x return I've seen from that one investment. So coaching, the investment side of that is just a no-brainer in my opinion. If you're willing to put in the work, the coaching program, you're either going to outgrow it real fast or it's going to help you succeed for the future. I mean, it's one of those two. But the chances of you not getting anything out of a coaching program, I think, is very unlikely. Now, with that said, in terms of your team, though, so we have 29 people at Base Coat Marketing. Diverse set of disc profiles. We use Colby as well. So they all have different, perspectives and different motivations in life. And we ask them whenever they join, what's your why? Like, why are you here? Why did you decide to join Base Coat Marketing? Because we want to know what motivates them, like what gets them out of bed each day. Some people like to travel. Some people want to just do more surfing in their free time, like whatever that looks like to each person on our team. But the bottom line is everybody on your team, it's going to be very few people on your team, actually, are going to be as motivated as you are as the entrepreneur, right? You have all the risk on the line. So to think that putting somebody from your team into a coaching program is going to get them the same kind of benefit as it's going to get to you, I think is very unlikely. That is why it's under my opinion that you as the leader should be leading them on, using the shoulders of others. So whatever you learn at a coaching program, you should internalize it. And the best way to do that is to teach other people. And I think that's why, on our we do weekly team huddles. We just had one this morning. It's every Friday morning, and we just get everybody on the huddle, and I'll talk about some boring topic that some people may enjoy, some people won't. We talked about burnout this morning and how just that looks so different for other people, and it's hard to recognize it when you're in it, and just tools and tactics that you can implement in your life to get out of that. But that's something I learned from somebody else. Like, there's no unique thoughts these days. I think we all just kind of learn something from somebody else and then twist it into our own perspective.
Mm. And so, what are you saying, that you just accept, or you are agreeing, if you don't make your own personal investment, you will have a different or a less, or it's obviously maybe not even say less or more. There is a difference in personally investing in coaching and not. I'm saying, or would you agree with that?
Let me rephrase. Yeah. So I think from a life coaching standpoint, it needs to be very individual, and it needs to be the person investing in that. I think some people could benefit from it, but it's a different mindset on the life coaching side, given that there is so much motivation involved there that falls outside of a job description, right? On the tactical side, so skills, that other 10%, 100%, you can invest in coaching, your department leads, whatever, whoever's a leader on your team should find a lot of value in that. But that's just because it falls in their job description, though.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. I would say, what else is, like what's the future for Austin look like
So
next 3 to 5 years?
yeah, base coat marketing is an ever evolving and we started out as a lead gen company, right, and just delivering results for clients. We got our start back in around 2008, working with some of the big franchises nationally under a previous agency of mine, and we had since pulled that team over into base coat marketing and really doubled down in this industry. Well, over the years, as COVID happened and life got real easy for us, and then it's kind of back to pre-COVID numbers where it's getting a little more competitive. And the fact that we continued working with business owners, I think one of my biggest failures as an entrepreneur is presuming the success in other entrepreneurs, right? So what I mean by that is assuming that other people who are running a successful company are a successful business owner. And just as an example, let's say that you have a $2 million painting company. Us bringing them on as a client, I would presume that they know how to sell and that they're pretty good at operations, right? Is that you get to multiple seven figures, you got to be doing something right. The That presumption is wrong. There's a lot of guys who run a lot of businesses that on the surface seem pretty successful, and then when you get into the nitty gritty of it, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to run a business, and some of them are not very coachable, right? So that was a big eye-opening, awakening experience for me. So something that we're doing to assist with that is providing resources across the board for all of our clients, coaching. And if look again, it goes back to the thought of if you are coachable and you're motivated as an entrepreneur, there's nothing you can't do in life as long as you are willing to take the advice of others. If you think you are the smartest guy in the room, have fun hitting those potholes because they're going to hurt.
So you are, do you do more like aggressive is the wrong term, weeding out of like, how do you vet clients before? Because this is something that is very, very relevant to us when we're doing automation packages. Like, obviously, we have a reputation management, a review software. It's like, use it. Anyone, it's applicable to anybody. It's a software, plug it in, it works. But from the consulting and automation side, it's like we're basically getting married. Like, it's very like intimate in like the access level that we need to like QuickBooks and accounting and all your numbers, like everything, because all of it can be automated. And so we've had some situations where, and luckily it's all been before we've ever like agreed to work with people. But in the discovery calls, we're kind of like, did he just say that? Like, that's kind of a red flag, anyways, I'm curious if you have any structured way of qualifying, or even just like putting out values, or, stating things to help them discern out themselves, so they don't want to work with you guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's We have hard KPIs and soft KPIs around that. So our sales process early on is like, hey, you got money and do you want to work with us? Great. Here's a form. Go. Let's get going. Right now, it is very different than that. We turn away, and I literally say this on the sales call. We turn away about 2/3 of business. So if they make it far enough on the call where they're still talking to me, and I'm like, all right, let's talk about pricing, they're definitely the minority of people that we would ever talk to. So what that looks like for us is we have a discovery call and we have some hard KPIs. They're just hard numbers that we know if your company is of this size, you're going to be stretching to afford our services, and we never want that. This should be a comfortable relationship where you jump in. We're one component of your marketing strategy. Once all those hard KPIs are defined, that's when we start talking about soft KPIs, and that's going to be, do we want to work with this person? Yes, they can afford us. Their company's right. It's structured right. Their growth goals are right. But is this person? Do they have the personality of a team member that we'd want to bring on? Because we literally treat our clients as a team member or as a partner of ours. And to your point, it's like getting married, and that's how we evaluate all of these relationships. And yes, it's difficult to do over a phone call or two. We do our best job. There's always going to be a certain percentage that slips through, but every time that happens, we just learn from that, right? It's a failure that we consider an opportunity to learn. That's all a failure. Failing is just a new challenge or a new opportunity.
Love it. And do you have like a specific, their clients are not taking a test or something, or filling out a survey or things like that?
I've considered giving,
Because these are all things that have been discussed on our end. And I'm like,
yeah,
I'm not opposed to it, but I also am wondering, like, yeah, how much work do you make it for someone? Yeah. I mean, it's, I guess it's the demand is for the service, the more hoops you can make people jump through. But
Absolutely. I mean, we're generally booked out around this time of the year, about 30 days. So it is not, we're not hurting for business in that regard. And I would rather bring on somebody that we know is going to be a good fit for us than bring on somebody that's going to be a challenge for everybody, because it's going to be painful for them too. But, you know, it's funny. I was having actually a conversation with one of my coaches the other day. Like, wouldn't it be great if everybody just wore their disc assessment on their forehead? Like, it would make life so much easier to be able to have conversations and talk to people, especially once you get to know how the disc profile and like the Colby assessment, how all of those actually, turn out in real life. Um, but no, I've actually considered giving our prospects a disc assessment just to understand how they tick. Because I think that would really, if you start to develop a profile around that, I'm a big numbers and data guy. And if you can identify like, hey, this is the profile that we fit best with, then those are the kind of people that you want. I don't know. That's
I mean, I completely agree. We've had our discovery process for automation is like, it's very in depth. It takes usually 2 meetings at least that are an hour to an hour and a half, sometimes a third one, to just like make sure that we know what we're getting into and make sure that it's very clear what problems we're going to solve and what we aren't going to solve, and then communicate that effectively. And there have been 2 instances on discovery calls where people are just like, and this is 2 out of say 50 discovery calls in the last 2 years, where people are like, okay, can we just cut to the chase? Like, what do you guys, what's up with all these questions? And to me, I'm like, all right, like this is the urgency that they have to like quickly solve the problem is a red flag. That's like, oh, okay. That's, you just kind of revealed some colors there of like, I don't know if this is going to work because we have a process and we're very methodical. And if you want to deviate, you're welcome to pick a company that like moves faster. And so like, luckily, I don't know, that's kind of an interesting, like the discovery process, because it's a longer period, kind of has the ability to get, in our case, I'm not saying it's relevant for any type of business, but the work that we're doing is like literally touching everything. So we've had that work to our benefit a few times.
I mean, I think the pre-qualification in any business is going to be critical, right? It's something that if you, let's say you just break it down to like a painting company, there's going to be clients that you do not want to work with, or you shouldn't work with, might be a better way to say that. We had one of our clients say that their ideal client is somebody with a good sense of humor. And I loved that description, because I think if you have a good sense of humor, it just makes life light, right? And it's not so serious. In business, I think a lot of people take it way too seriously.
All right. So we're going to move to the wrap up questions. What are 3 book recommendations you have for us?
Yeah, so I just finished reading a book the other day called The Chimp Paradox. If you haven't read it, we're talking about mindset. It is a great book about mindset, and it just breaks down the concept of having a chimp inside of your mind that is like our basic evolutionary mind, like the fight or flight kind of mind, and it is 10 times stronger than your human mind, right? Like you're never going to be able to wrestle that chimp. So your chimp is typically going to win in these stressful situations, but your human mind's the analytical thinker, right? So that whole book breaking down challenges, problems, how you can go about solving them without your chimp getting in the way, but knowing that you can't tame your chimp. It's just this constant battle in your mind. That book really resonated.
What's that, the title again?
It's called The Chimp Paradox. And there's a book, and this is something that any business owner should read. It's called They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. It's our entire content strategy. So if you want to go steal our SEO strategy, our content strategy, go read that book. It is fantastic. It is something that it identifies.
I forgot that we've talked about this before. I'm a huge fan of it.
Yeah, it's brilliant book. And then finally, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Story brand is how we write all of our content. So marketing is 99% content. I would say it's probably 90% expectation setting, 10% content, but out of the actual implementation, it's 99% content, right? And having the ability to write a story about your brand versus trying to sell your brand is a very different concept. So those are my top 3 book recommendations for any business owner.
Love it. And what is your movie recommendation?
Yeah. So look, whenever I watch movies, it's going to be some nerdy sci-fi movie that I can just shut my brain off for. I've always really enjoyed the movie Interstellar, and I think it's in part because it has Matthew McConaughey in it. And it's I'm just a space nerd in that regard, so I've always really enjoyed that one.
That is I feel like I had a science teacher tell me that Interstellar is like the most physics or physically, but physics correct movie.
They had physicists actually analyzing the film on like the black hole part to make new discoveries. Like the way that they built that algorithm to make the special effects is just incredible. So I could talk about that for an hour.
Yeah, I think yeah, it really when you start getting into that, it's like, oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
yeah, it is crazy. The universe and just existence is intelligently designed. I'll say that.
On the next podcast, let's talk about space, Chris. I think that's a great topic.
Yes. My wife hates talking about space. Interestingly enough, she is we're both Christian, and so she like it's I don't know what it is like I don't like God created this like you know but she's just like it like makes her uncomfortable, and I'm like I think it's like if you probably have the number of stars. Like, have you looked at this or studied this? It's like I remember in college, like you look at like a little chunk, like hold a quarter up, and like the stars that are within like that quarter or something is billions. And then it's like, yeah, it's absolutely mind boggling how many stars there are. And then to think that each one of those stars is a sun, small percentage of those have planets orbiting them. And, it's crazy.
Habitable life has got to be out there. It's just interesting that we haven't discovered it yet. But
Exactly. Yeah. So what is your preferred method of contact for people to reach out to you?
yeah, so very simple. Basecoatmarketing.com/call. Just /call. If you guys want to get on a call with our team, we'd be happy to run through some of those pre-qualification questions to see if you might be a good fit for us and our programs.
Yeah. And Austin, I can tell you, cause we have shared clients for painting companies in particular. And if you're one of our clients, Base Coat does a great job. We have I think we have 3 clients that I'm aware of that are work with us for the automation and work with Base Coat for marketing. So they have been very pleased with the results that Base Coat's delivered so far. So I appreciate your time, Austin. And it's been great working with you side by side, and we'll be seeing you around.
Thanks again, Chris. Talk soon, brother.
Thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris Kiefer, and my mission is to champion the relentless pursuit of purpose. And what that means to me is to be an example, a champion, someone that is in the trenches, working and showing and winning and trying and failing in how to pursue a deeper and more meaningful life with the people that I love, with my kids, with my friends, with our family, and also just be a champion and example of entrepreneurship and following my passion and doing what I believe I'm called to on this earth. And so if that inspires you in some way, please share this episode. If you want, like, subscribe, share, whatever, do all the stuff. It means the world to me to get this message and get these guests that I have out there. And if you're interested in any of the book recommendations or looking up other episodes, the movie list, you can visit my website, chriskiefer.com, for all the details on the show. And also check out the Boolean review software, as well as the Boolean automation consulting company that I own for home service businesses. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.